If you click on the chat on the right side, or comments, you'll be able to see all of the chats on all 4 channels. All right, we are live. I'm going to put you guys in. The audience can hear me because I'm unmuted so that all the audio is coming through.
Threw it out as a possible charge.
I don't know if you guys want to open the stream up a little bit or just put up. Hold on, let me unmute you guys.
Put the audio. Let them hear the audio from the broadcast.
Gotcha.
And in that charge, the state needs to prove that Chauvin caused George Floyd's death while committing a third-degree assault. So the state does not have to prove that Derek Chauvin meant to kill George Floyd or even that he meant to seriously hurt him. They only have to prove that the assault was intentional, meaning Chauvin intentionally applied unlawful force to Floyd. The former Minnesota State Supreme Court Justice that I was talking to today said kind of a comparison for this is, think of that bar fight scenario. Someone gets in a fight with somebody, they intentionally punch them, say, assault them, right? But then that person might end up falling and hitting their head and dying. So the act itself was intentional, but the consequence was not intentional. That's what that second-degree murder charge means. Then you have this third-degree murder charge. Right, this is the late ad. This is the one that was applied in the Mohammed Noor case and went through the state Supreme Court and could still, went through the state Court of Appeals and could still end up in Minnesota State Supreme Court. And on that third-degree murder charge, the state needs to prove that Chauvin caused Floyd's death by committing a dangerous act to others. You heard one of our legal experts, Mike Bryan, talking about the Court of Appeals decided that danger to others other can just be one person. So that was one of our big questions in this case. Would the state be able to prove that Derek Chauvin's actions were dangerous to multiple people? But that state appeals court ruling says that one person is enough for other. Then also in that definition where things get a little dicey is that this person was acting with a depraved mind. Now, depraved mind doesn't mean any kind of psychosis or mental illness. Depraved mind just means that an act was so unreasonable that someone was not thinking about the dangers they were causing or thinking of the consequences. The way it was described to me today is it's an act that's reckless and careless, and the perpetrator shows a complete lack of regard for human life. So that's one of those pieces, Randy, of that third-degree murder charge that they have to consider. And then we have this third and final charge. This is the second-degree manslaughter charge. And for that, the state needs to prove Derek Chauvin created an unreasonable risk and consciously took the chance of causing death or great harm to another person. I personally find these definitions so fascinating. It gives us an idea into the debate or the conversations that were happening in the deliberation room while the jury was trying to decide a guilty or a not guilty verdict. Right. It shows it's not so cut and dry, Randy. It's not so simple. There are multiple elements, multiple legal definitions within each one of these charges. And that's why we kind of figured it might take them several days to work through all of this. But as you've been hearing, about 10 hours the jury took to deliberate before announcing that they had reached a verdict.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. Important also to note that the jury can consider all of the charges, can convict on all, some, or none. And that is the case that we see here today. BC O'Leary has been with us from the beginning as well. She's watched this from a standpoint of in the morning hours of testimony. BC, this jury, 10 hours considered quick, and the analysts are unanimous in their thinking.
Thank you for your super chat, Count Amberjacks.
Conviction.
Yeah, we want to bring in trial attorney Mike Bryant for some more legal analysis. Mike, can you just kind of walk us through what this process is like when a verdict is read before and after? What can we expect?
Well, what'll happen is the jury will
I just got a notification saying it's about to be read.
Judge.
Okay.
And then the judge will get, he'll ask if they've come to a unanimous verdict, and the foreperson will answer and say that we have. So we'll know who the foreperson is at that point. And then the judge will read it himself. He'll look at it, and usually they do that kind of with a poker face. They don't let it known what they see when they look at it. And then it'll go back, and it'll either be read by the foreperson or it could be read by court personnel. And then they'll go through each of the counts and they'll read them off, and we'll hear each of the counts, guilty or not guilty. Then, you know, the judge will thank them for their service. The judge will probably, I would assume, tell the courtroom, you know, he doesn't want any emotional outbursts either way.
He's going to celebrate, man.
Then we'll get the verdict, and people will go from there. It can go in two directions. If he's found not guilty, then he's released, and that's it. It's over. And if he's found guilty, then what will happen is then it'll continue on, because he'll get remanded to custody, which means he'll go back inside, and then he'll go through a pre-sentence investigation that may have already been done in part. They may be working on that, or they may not. And then there'll be some recommendations at some point, but it's not like TV where they just bang down the gavel and say, you know, 12 years, 15 years, boom, like that. There's a whole process that goes on. We know that the state is going to ask for increased charges. That was the Blakely waiver that was done yesterday by the defense. So if he's found guilty, that'll come into play too, because the state's going to ask for them to go outside of the guidelines. And if he's not found guilty, and you know, my thought in it is they're unanimous. They all saw it the same way, but we'll wait and see what it is they found.
Yeah, we're expecting to hear something very soon. Trial attorney Mike Bryant, thank you.
All right, thanks, BC. We want to take you back now downtown to Minneapolis, and I believe we have Courtney back. Yeah. Important to note, the courtroom is almost empty. Just have the essential staff there, and then one family member for each side. So traditionally, we would have reaction in the courtroom. With COVID, that's not. It's going to be rather quiet, and instead, you'll see a lot of reaction outside. Courtney Godfrey, downtown Minneapolis, with a look at a crowd that is growing quickly. Courtney.
Yeah, Kelsey, I'll tell you right now, it's still majority media, but people continue to come in and chant
just bull split. Thank you.
Protesters are
super chat. Let justice be served.
Moment. I think a lot of
walking on my grave. No matter what 12 people decide, we know what happened. Much love to everyone.
This can only be good news for their cause. I'll show you that to the left here of my cameraman, there's a
Tails, thank you for yours too. Panic attack loading. Yes.
They're barbecuing.
Yes.
They're positive right now.
Woosah, everybody.
Woosah.
Right
I'm
now,
trying.
That change. People continue to come in.
I feel so nervous. I'm about to cry.
Out here in Center Plaza growing. Now, we did also witness sheriff deputies closing off 2nd Avenue about
Tiger, thank you. They can either sacrifice Derek or sacrifice the country.
Law enforcement obviously preparing for this, and honestly, they've been preparing for this for weeks. Our law enforcement sources say that they've been on edge waiting for this moment, as all this media has been. So here the moment is now, and we're all just waiting for that verdict to be read and then to see where this mood changes from there.
The safety plan that you mentioned with security was put in place in advance of this trial, but then also tested through the last week or so after the death of Daunte Wright. So we're waiting to hear from Operation Safety Net to see if they will address the public or just start to move in place. We'll come back to you in just a bit. Thanks, Courtney.
All right. Well, listen, there of all our reporters, and we have people stationed all over the Twin Cities, and you can imagine, as well as in the studio here. Paul Bloom has been there from literally the first second that this began, and I want Paul to join us now. Paul, there's one thing that I think we need to do as we approach the verdict moment, and that is give our viewers a chance to sort of relive some of those iconic moments of this trial. No one knows this better than you in terms of our team here. Give us a sort of Reader's Digest condensed version of how this thing started and up to the point yesterday when this jury took it on.
I would come to us, but I don't want to risk.
Today, a verdict.
I don't want to risk us missing the verdict. So that's why we're not talking yet. But as soon as we get the verdict, we'll cut their commentary out and we'll have our conversation over here. So hold tight, everyone, and let's hear this verdict.
I can, just so you know, that I can patch in as soon as the judge is shown on screen, because then we'll know that the verdict's being read. But we can stick with our coverage for a bit if you want.
It's up to you, David. I don't want us to miss it.
No, well, I'm going to keep them on screen. So as soon as I'm sure they're going to pop as soon as they go to the courtroom. So. All
right, well, bring it down then. So we'll discuss a little bit, and David just jump in there.
Yep.
I'm not nervous, James. I'm resolved, man. If these people cannot understand that they got to give the people, you got to give us this one, right? If they spit in our face in this regard, and I don't even think that they will. I honestly think that they've come back quick enough for this to be a conviction, and then let's just move on, because they know they got to sacrifice that man, or else this whole system will come crumbling down.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, it's just the thought in my head though is just like, man, just from the past. It just got me on edge, bro. That's my only thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm confident and highly optimistic in the guilty verdict.
Yeah.
But you know, America has shown us before, bro. America has shown us before.
Let me tell you something. People gonna party.
Right, Kyle.
People gonna party, man. People gonna party and dance on this man's grave. You know, rhetorically speaking, obviously, because he'll be going to jail. But and I'm torn as to whether or not we should party the way I would want to, because it's like, you know, this is the least. This is the damn least that they could do, is to give us all the video evidence, 24 different angles.
24.
Have more angles than there are dimensions. They got 24 angles,
right?
From every perspective imaginable. They saw through the lens of the eyes of a murderer, and they expect us to be like, okay, no, we're good. You guys could, you know, this is like Rodney King. Nah, this is different than Rodney King. So anyway, I think they're going to do the right thing because they don't have a choice. That's all.
Man, I'm trying to remain optimistic. Oh, it's killing me, bro. It's killing me.
Man, place the okay. Do we get enough bandwidth to play a little music?
Hey, look, let's see. We're gonna try it.
Hey.
Should be able to.
Hey, Rebecca Azor. Tap into the matrix.
Come on, Rebecca, tap in.
Gotta jack into the matrix. Plug up. Upload.
Go and try your luck. Test me in again. We let it rain. Please don't start us up. Got that black and white, that yin and yang. Mr. Officer, please don't search us. We don't got a thing. Tell them park it up.
Okay, hey. Drop the music. I want to keep a good eye. I will keep a good eye. David, turn up the let's listen to the broadcast. Just enough. You can bring it up a little bit more, David. I'm not getting the good audio.
To the government center behind me to be here for this historic and global impactful moment. There also is sort of a mass exodus that's happening. Of course, where I sit or stand heading in this direction would be the interstates getting on 35W. And if you head the other way towards 394, there is this sort of exodus out of downtown. And you were with me earlier when I was speaking to criminal defense attorney Ryan Pasiga, who offices downtown. His employees all had go bags from their office up on the 27th floor of a nearby tower for this very moment.
Cody, verdict is expected within any time between now and 5 o'clock, within 20 minutes.
Side of the Hennepin County Government Center, they cleared out everybody. They are very concerned about what comes next, guys, after this verdict is read. The preparation has been done. Is everybody ready? We will see.
You are absolutely right, Paul. 2 resounding. This jury come back with.
You know what? Let me say this, David.
The verdict is read. Those are the things that.
And then again, just be sure to let us know as soon as we get any indication of the verdict. We don't want to overtalk that, but it's funny. I think people should really recognize where the people decided to make a stand. It was right here. That last year you had people. It wasn't just Black Lives Matter out there. It wasn't just like leftists and Antifa, if even so much as it is a thing, and so much as more it's an idea. But you had soccer moms out there last summer. You had, I never forget the sound of that 73-year-old white man in New York, upstate New York, as his head cracked on the concrete below. He was by police, and he was there. This last year, the people made a stand, and they stood around the fact that we just cannot, will not. This is something that we cannot process. We can't comprehend allowing you to be able to do this to us continuously without us, responding. And you saw so many people. It was a beautiful mix of people who came and stood, and every single one of them felt the same brunt of the police state that Black people have been feeling for generations.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We've been telling you all about this. We have absolutely been saying that this is what this country does when you're not looking. And now the country has said, nah, this is who we are when you're looking, and looking from 24 different angles. So that's why, that's why we couldn't tolerate this. He's definitely, I don't want to make any predictions, but if I was a gambling man, I would say the fact that they came back quickly seems that they see the same thing. And there's just no way that you could deny what we saw in this videotape. James, what do you think?
I agree. I just hope that, get this right, man. Let's just get this right. But you're right. This is a culmination of a lot. And it was everybody out there last year. So I just hope that everything goes like it's supposed to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to keep an eye on the verdict, and we'll make sure everybody, we'll make sure that you get it as quickly as we get it. There is a little bit of a delay there, but we're able to experience it together.
Yeah.
And we'll just go from there. So David, turn up the audio for the broadcast, and let's keep our eyes and ears on the verdict.
By the state of upward departure of the sentencing guidelines. There's going to be motions by the defense for a downward departure of those guidelines. So we're not going to learn of a sentence anytime soon here. With all that being said, the mood in the courtroom is going to be controlled by the judge. He understands that this verdict means a lot to a lot of different people and means differently to a lot of different people. And so number one, he's going to make sure that the jury gets the utmost respect, and they will start out by standing for the jury, and that when the verdict is read, everyone is going to have to remain calm. There's not going to be any outburst, and then based on that decision, you'll see Derek Chauvin either being escorted to the back outside the courtroom, where he'll await his fate. If it's conviction, he will be charged, and he'll go to wherever he's going to be held. If it's an acquittal, I'm pretty sure that they will let people leave the courtroom in an orderly fashion. So in anticipation of people's outburst.
Lee, there will be a lot of emotion when this verdict is read, and if he is convicted on 1, 2, or 3 of these charges, help us understand there is an appeal process that would likely take place, and help us understand between those charges what may end up happening down the road.
I think we all can anticipate, based on defendants' motions, that there's going to be an appeal if there's a conviction. We'll have to wait and see what terms or what are the arguments for appeal. We have at least some indication that possible the jury sequestration or lack thereof basically tainted the jury. One other potential appeal is that comments from local political leaders disturbed how the jury was thinking, and there may be many more. I mean, we've even had an allegation of prosecutorial misconduct based on statements in the closing arguments.
All right, hold it there, David. Hold it there, David. I know the audio quality is not what you would normally want, but we appreciate you, experiencing this with us. Everything that he's saying, all it is telling me is that we absolutely at no point can we afford to think that we have ever gotten justice. Like, justice is never complete. It's never finished, because they're going to appeal. Every opportunity that they can take to appeal, they're going to appeal. And if just one judge sees it their way, then we lose all the sense of, not even just the sense of justice, we lose justice itself. So we have to constantly be vigilant. Like, we have to always be on guard. We always have to look and see what's the next move that they're going to try to make to snatch justice away from us. So, James, I was thinking, I'm like, yeah, do I want to party like the way we would normally party? And the thing is, it's like, we can't afford to. And the reason we can't afford to is because they are going to try to steal this and snatch this away at every single turn. Every turn.
In some kind of way, even if he's guilty, I still think even if he is guilty, there's going to be some bullshit that follows after.
Yeah.
You already know what it is.
Yeah.
Be one of those things where he's only going to serve a couple of years, dude. There's going to be some bullshit at the end.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Because just imagine if anyone not in uniform were to do that to an animal. Right? Not to be dramatic, but think about it. If somebody who was not a cop had done the same exact thing, not to another human being, but did it to an animal, the fury, the amount of rage, you know what I mean? The amount of, rightfully so, the amount of rage that would have come down from this country on that one individual would have been something that I don't think we've ever seen. Like, they would have written books about it. But anyway, the point is that had this been done by somebody who's not a police officer to an animal, we would not have even been having these conversations. Mm-hmm. It would have already been guilty. It would have already been taken care of. We wouldn't have to appeal to justice. What? No, that's it. But he did it to a black man. And now we have to come into question George Floyd's humanity. Yep. That's what's at question right here. Or rather, no, how half of this world sees our humanity. I'm not just talking about white folks, man. I'm talking about bad faith actors, people who know better. Anyway, I digress. No verdict yet?
No verdict yet.
Right.
This judge's timing has been bad. He's gone to break for 5 minutes, which turned into a half hour every break. So I don't know what to expect.
All right. Well, we hope we'll get it soon. I have to be I'll be oddly enough, I'm scheduled to be on with Roland Martin tonight at 6. So
and look, I got to dip by 5:15 at the latest.
Okay.
You know how working.
We should have the verdict before 5:30. I would hope at least 5:30 Eastern.
James, at whatever point you got to jump, man, go ahead and jump. And I'll just I'll carry the stream until as long as I can.
For those looking for Rebecca, she was hoping to join, and we're still holding out hope that she can, but she's in the middle of her workday too.
Yeah.
Read the verdict and their decision in this case as it comes up.
And the world is watching right now. News headlines around the world talking about this verdict. New Zealand, Australia, around the world and across the country. There's a crowd gathering right now where George Floyd was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And as you'll remember, last summer, there were marches around the world in Germany, Australia, all over Europe about George Floyd and this moment that happened on May 25th when he lost his life. So there are lots of eyeballs on this verdict and where we go from here as a community and as a nation. And there is a lot of anxiety in those crowds right now. A lot of people wondering what the verdict is going to be and what that will mean for this city, for the state, and for this country. We want to go now live to our Mitty Hicks, who is also at 38th in Chicago, in a little bit of a different location in front of the Cup Foods. Mitty, what's the tone like where you are?
Yeah, well, just a minute ago, people were chanting "Black Lives They Matter" here, and you do feel this sense of this sense of anxiety as people here waiting for that verdict. People are, when we first came down here, there were about 30, 40 people, and it looks like there could be about 100 people here. Here, I'll just get out of the way. You know, Babs mentioned this earlier. This is a sacred place for a lot of people. You had coming down, you know, talking to the crowd about, listen, whatever happens with this verdict, it doesn't stop here. That's one thing we've been hearing over and over again. To the right of me, you see more signs. You see signs for Dante Wright. You see pictures of Philando. You just kind of see people waiting, coming together, and really just trying to be each other's support as they wait for this verdict. One of the activists in the middle, there's a little crowd that's circled together by a mural of George Floyd. And one of the activists was really saying, you know, we have to do more work. No matter what happens with this verdict, we have to go to certain communities, figure out how to fund other communities. So again, now we don't see these type of trials again, because her point was that you know, a lot of times in certain communities, they just don't have a lot of resources. So that's one of the things she was focusing on, is getting more resources in the community even after this verdict. So again, it's very anxious here. A lot of waiting going on, a lot of chanting. They are starting up again with saying Black Lives They Matter here. So that's what we're seeing a little bit here on the scene, Kelsey and Randy.
All right, Mitty, thank you so much. Paul Bloom standing by, the Hennepin County Government Center, up in the nest there above all of this, outside that area where the verdict will come down. He joins us now once again. Paul, your standpoint, your viewpoint, a good one, because you can see, as you said before, people leaving the city, trying to get out before this verdict comes down, and what may happen after that, what may not happen after that. We want to make sure that we stay focused on that.
Turn it down real quick.
You're also seeing the
all of this, y'all. Okay, listen. I think it's going to be a good verdict that we need. Not to dramatize it, I think it's going to be a guilty verdict. I don't see how there's anything except that. I'm just so amazed at how much we have to work to just get this little modicum of justice.
Right.
We got to work so hard,
like super hard, dude. Like damn, like
they better not do this 420.
we put as much energy into simply getting justice for one Black life in this country as those terrorists did on January 6th in order to overthrow the government because they didn't get their way in an election, right? That's the kind of energy, and we have to fight that level with that level of organizing, that level of you know, behind the scenes work, just to get justice for one Black man in this country. So celebrate. I definitely think, I think it's going to be what we need. I don't see how they could go any other way. But I'm just like, we got to keep an eye on it at all times. Yeah. All right.
Like David said, they better be glad it's happening on this day.
yeah. I don't know. This might be the worst day they could have done it. No, it's
like for real, dude. Because my guy's about to be gone.
Yeah. All right, turn it up.
We've been talking to legal analysts about what it means, seemingly favoring the state, and at least perhaps convictions on multiple counts. But we will see. Now just minutes away, waiting. They said by 4 o'clock, so we're now within about 6 minutes of that point. And again, demonstrators, media, that South Lawn filling up. From where I am, obviously we know security is intense. The governor has called in state troopers from other states, Nebraska, Ohio. I would just sort of comment. I did just see a couple of Anoka County sheriff deputy squads coming downtown here a minute ago, heading towards this crowd at the government center. Obviously, we know Operation Safety Net multi-jurisdictional. The National Guard is here. We talked about the clearing out of downtown, buildings evacuated. A law firm, Ryan Pasiga, with us earlier, telling us he had his teams with go bags. Minneapolis Public Schools, looking forward these next few days, had already announced they were going to distance learning because of the potential of disruptions around the city. It's just really hard to believe since the Memorial Day death, the tragedy that unfolded at 38th and Chicago, not even a full year later, here we are, a jury with a verdict, unanimous verdicts up and down. We don't know what they are. 3 counts, murder 2, murder 3, second-degree manslaughter. And this backdrop that it comes.
Check me out, man. Y'all hear what this man is saying?
Center with Dante Wright recently, the unrest that unfolded there,
David.
the move to try to sequester the jury.
All right, so what this man is saying behind these folks are preparing for the worst. And they understand that the worst in this country for them is if their buildings get burned down because the wrong verdict comes down. That's what they're preparing for. They're boarding up their restaurants. They're boarding. I mean, do what you got to do. There's no problem there. But it's because they have a full expectation that there isn't justice in this country. And they're not too far from the truth, right? That's the truth of the matter is that this could go sideways. But at best, the best result that we can get, because you can't bring George Floyd back. You know, the best result that we can get at this point is justice. So the best that we can get is justice. And the worst that they can get is like one of their third buildings that they own might get burned down. Don't worry, they have 20 other buildings, you know? And it just really speaks volumes to the wrongs that are a part of this country's very fiber. The very fiber and fabric of this country is rooted in white supremacy, which is at its core just cruel in that it doesn't even want to recognize the humanity. And well, maybe all that could be true, and maybe today we'll get some justice. But the best that we could get is a guilty verdict, because none of this brings George Floyd back. All right. Let's keep listening in, man. They said 4:30, man.
You know, I was curious to kind of see what they felt about Eric Nelson's lengthy closing arguments yesterday. And, you know, I talked to the pool reporter who was inside there. She was describing that there was some tune out, some distraction, but she said nothing over the top, right? We were sitting in the media center thinking, oh, God, this is, you know, I don't mean to disrespect Eric Nelson. He had you know, a hell of a job to defend his client, and he did it wonderfully. But it just went on and on. I didn't know how the jury might react in that moment, but she said nothing over the top. They did seem focused, a lot of note taking. The one thing I will say about my day was sort of mid-trial. It was the Friday that went half a day. There was a Minneapolis police sergeant, and then the second witness was the longtime homicide detective, Lieutenant Richard Zimmerman, and he's old school police and is just kind of engaging as a witness. And then when he was talking about how the move of a knee to the back of George Floyd's neck was totally uncalled for, and nowhere in his 3 decades of training had he ever been trained to do anything like that. You saw at that point, all 14 jurors, of course, 2 have been sent home as alternates, but at that point, everybody went right to their notebook and appeared really engaged, really interested. I thought that was a point worth noting. And then the other thing was just how quickly I was mid-trial, and already I had noticed, you know, friendships had sprung up during breaks, jurors turning to one another in their seating area and talking. And of course, you got to remember, and I know we've talked about this courtroom is just so different. The layout, the feel of mid-COVID, the plexiglass, the jurors are spread further apart. Usually they're kind of bunched in a little tighter. It's difficult to make eye contact with the defendant, how they have him situated, and the way the courtroom lays out. So it's a different dynamic. Just keep that in mind as you watch. I don't know the exact layout of the 3 cameras, Court TV, who's providing the cameras inside the courtroom that we do broadcast live. They have some fixed camera positions that Judge Cahill has agreed to as part of this process of televising, of making this most public of trials public. And I do want to say the one other thing about the camera angle: this is the one time where the camera will be allowed to zoom in on the defendant. Otherwise, the rules from Cahill was to stay wide, no tight shots. But today, look for that camera to zoom in on the defendant's reaction when these verdicts are read.
All right, Paul, thank you so much. We appreciate that. I want to remind our viewers it's 4 o'clock now. This is the time in which we were told the verdict would come in from this jury. We're going to show you very live images from all around the Twin Cities, but primarily you'll see that symbol there, that iconic seal there. That is inside the courtroom. We'll make sure you understand that. And then we have Skyfox 9 up in the air as well. We have camera at 38th in Chicago, and of course we have a ground camera there outside the Hennepin County Courthouse there on the plaza scene, and we are watching what happens very closely once that verdict is read again. The charges against Derek Chauvin, this jury considers all of them or none of them. They can come back with a partial verdict in terms of the charges: second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. They could deem him guilty on all charges or innocent on all charges, not guilty, and those are what we're watching for right now, the combination. We do know that there's a unanimous verdict in this because they came back with that, and the court has on record with the verdict, so we know at least that is what's happening here in the next few minutes.
And Randy, policing.
All right, I gotta jump on, brother.
All right, man. We'll catch you in the morning, man.
Yeah, man. I'll see y'all in the morning. All right, y'all.
All right, man.
Have a good one, James.
I'm gonna stay with the stream as long as I can. I was hoping that we could get the verdict and excuse me, we would get the verdict before I had to leave myself.
What time do you think you have to cut? 5:45, 5:30?
Oh no, right, about 5:15. I need to get ready. Get dressed.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
I mean, I can keep it going, but I'm not Ben Dixon or Bubba or Rebecca. So.
Yeah, we'll just end the stream, and then we'll pick it up again in the morning. But we'll stay as long as we can. So hopefully it comes in the next 10-15 minutes.
Yep.
Which is his right under the Constitution, but he did it this way, and there's other examples of it being done. I think they brought up some examples where there's been testimony contrary by.
Thanks to everyone sending in the super chats. We haven't been able to read each one, but thank you to everyone.
And with what continues to happen across the country, those are all things that need to be looked at. As far as training goes, we need to make sure that training's done properly, and then we have people who have the abilities to do what they're doing it.
Mike, I want to ask you about this jury, and try and put yourself as our legal analyst in the eyes of this jury. They had those 3 charges, and as I mentioned just a short time ago, they have to consider all 3 when they make their decision on something like this. You watched this unfold. You watched the key points of this trial. You saw the defense's object and their game.
Well, actually, I'll check your Slack, David.
If you're a jury sitting there yesterday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, what was the first thing that sort of is the bellwether moment in that trial for a juror?
Well, there were a couple things that I think you could point to. As a group, we know that they were a group that tended to not get into the news or not follow the news on what was happening in this case anyway, because they wouldn't be on the jury if they were deep into it. Second is, we know when they were brought back on that Monday, and a group of them came back and they said they heard something and they turned it off right away. So as a group, they stayed away from everything, or as much as they could on this case. And then suddenly, boom, they got weeks of the videos over and over again, and the experts over and over again, and people talking over again. They got a lot of, for people that originally turned away from it, a lot of information along those lines. For me, big points that came up in the trial were when we saw George Floyd inside cup foods. We got to see him alive. People you don't normally experience that. Did you get a chance to see somebody who the case is involving a dead person, but you get to see a bunch about him when he's alive, that just is minutes before he dies. The point when they heard the defendant talk to Mr. Williams on that tape, that was an opportunity for them to hear him at the scene right after it's happened and make some determinations on what that felt. I wonder what effect it had on.
Oh, here we go. All right.
All right, I want to take you now inside the courtroom. As you can see there, Judge Peter Cahill has taken his bench. We can assume the jury is in as well, since our court camera is now focused on the judge. It's moments away now from that verdict being read. Let's just stop and listen to see what the judge has to say. All rise for the jury. All right, please be seated. Members of the jury, I understand you have a verdict. Members of the jury, I will now read the verdicts as they will appear in the permanent records of the 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota, County of Hennepin, District Court, 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota Plaintiff versus Derek Michael Chauvin, Defendant. Verdict, Count 1, Court File Number 27, CR6. We the jury in the above entitled matter as to count. We the jury in the above entitled matter as to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty of April. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April, 2021 at 1:44 p.m. Signed, juror 4-person, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 2. We the jury in the above entitled matter as to count 2, third-degree murder perpetrating an eminently dangerous act, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April, 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Signed by jury 4-person, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 3. We the jury in the above entitled matter as to count 3, second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April, 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Jury 4-person, 019. Members of the jury, I'm now going to ask you individually if these are your true and correct verdicts. Please respond yes or no. Juror number 2, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 9, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 19, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 27, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 44, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 52, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 55, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 79, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 85, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 89, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 91, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 92, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Are these your verdicts? So say you one, so say you all.
Yes.
Members of the jury, I find that the verdicts as read reflect the will of the jury and will be filed accordingly. I have to thank you on behalf of the people of the state of Minnesota for not only jury service, but heavy-duty jury service. What I'm going to ask you to do now is to follow the deputy back into your usual room, and I will join you in a few minutes to answer questions and to advise you further. So, all rise for the jury.
All right, remand him into custody. Let's see it. Put them shackles on that man.
I don't know if he's taken into custody yet because he hasn't been sentenced.
All right, be seated.
And sentencing isn't today.
With the guilty verdicts returned, we're going to have Blakely. You may file a written argument as to Blakely factors within 1 week. The court will issue findings on the Blakely factors, the factual findings, 1 week after that. We'll order a PSI immediately returnable in 4 weeks. And we will also have a briefing on, after you get the PSI, 6 weeks from now, and then 8 weeks from now, we will have sentencing. We'll get you the exact dates in a scheduling order. Is there a motion on behalf of the state?
The state would move to have the court revoke the defendant's bail and remand him into custody pending sentencing.
Bail is revoked, bond is discharged, and the defendant is remanded to the custody of the Hennepin County Sheriff. Anything further? All right. Thank you.
Put the camera. Yeah, that's the part I want to see. That's the part that needs to be on replay. Carry his ass out of here. Sorry, folks.
We're adjourned.
Sorry. She over there. She ready. All right. That's the scene that we want to repeat over and over and over and over again. It's about time. It's about time that we start getting justice. Black people, at a minimum, deserve justice in this country. At a minimum. And so this is why it's like it's hard to celebrate. I mean, I'm ecstatic. Like, come on, celebration, right? Clap, clap, bravo. Like, I'm with it. It is a celebration, but the fact is that we had to work so hard. And when I say so hard, I mean how many lives? How many lives did it take for us to actually get a modicum of justice? Because America was always and is always going to be confronted with their core question. Are they going to value white supremacy more than they value this democracy? That's what America is having to decide right now. What do you value more? Your white supremacy or democracy? And so, this is just one answer to a much bigger question, right? Because cops are going to still be shooting us. They're still shooting us right now. As this verdict is being read or was read, a few blocks away down in Brooklyn Center, people are protesting the murder of Dante Wright. So we couldn't even get the first man found guilty before y'all done popped off and killed somebody else. Anyway, it's a good day. It's a good day. It's a good time. Celebrate however you celebrate. But just remember, this is just a modicum of justice. And I'm glad we got it. I'm glad we got it because Black folks been deserving a little, just the least we can get in this country is justice. Hell, like y'all don't let us get it in capital. You don't let us get any property. You don't let us get anything like that. But at least, what? Can we at least get some justice? Well, guilty on all counts. Derek Chauvin, guilty.
And don't forget, Ben, that we still have the other officers that will be tried all together for aiding and abetting, I believe is the charge.
Well, there you go. Got him. Yeah. And that's what I see. I don't see a lot of people celebrating, like overly celebrating. I see people who are tired. I see people who are tired and people who are worn out from all the times they had to fight. Not only the pandemic of COVID-19, but the pandemic of white supremacy. So shout out to all the people over there this is a good day. Congratulations to those people who were literally on the ground there in Minneapolis. Shout out to George Floyd, who's out there right now getting coverage and just out there grinding. Got shot with a rubber bullet while she was out there providing coverage on the ground. Salute to Georgia Floyd, not only covering the trial, but also going down to cover the protests in Brooklyn Center. So shout out to her and everybody else who's on the ground, all the local Black Lives Matter activists and the on the ground, all the organizations that we don't even know your names. A lot of organizations, we won't even know your name to call your names, but thank you. Thank you because you all put your actual bodies on the line to be out there and to do that. And so we salute you all. Salute. All right. That said, I got about 35 minutes to try to, at least put on a blazer and go hang out with Roland Martin as we discuss this a little bit further. David is going to keep the channel open for a little while for you all to chat, and because experiencing this is the best thing is about experiencing it together. So we want to leave the channel open for you all to talk to each other and to communicate with each other about, just make sure that you're talking to somebody in the comment section, and we'll keep the stream open. And as soon as you all are no longer interested in the stream being open, I'm sure, we'll get the message by the numbers.
I'll probably keep it open I'll probably keep it open for about another 45 minutes, give or take, depending on if the numbers keep up. Got 2,500 people riding with us. Thank you for tuning in, everyone.
All right, let me go get ready. All right, I will see you all later.
See you tomorrow, Ben.
I wanted you to.
You're looking at some live pictures from across the city. Up in the top left, that is an aerial picture of the government center. And then the box in the top right, 38th in Chicago, and bottom left, 38th in Chicago. And then I believe on the bottom right, outside the government center as well. The crowd's reacting to this verdict that came down at 4:05. And in just a few short moments, that verdict was read guilty on all three counts: second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter.
Dina 81, I missed the chance to put your super chat on screen, but thank you for your super chat.
Liberation. And we talked to the crowd going into this, many of them feeling a lot of anxiety, nervous about what the outcome would be. And then we were able to watch, and while it was silent, while we were listening to the judge in the courtroom, you could see the cheers and the response from the crowd. All right, we want to bring Paul Bloom in, who has covered every minute of this trial. And so, Paul, tell us just what you're seeing right now from your vantage point.
Well, a couple of things to bring you up to speed on, Kelsey. First, my vantage point. I know I'm kind of the courtroom reporter, but I do want to set the stage just from where I am, 5 floors up above the ground below. A large scene, as you guys are showing on the ground, with it's maybe still be 38th in Chicago, but a large demonstration, hooting and hollering as soon as those first verdicts were read. I have noticed some of the group has splintered off and is now blocking traffic along 3rd Avenue below. So they have blocked what is an open avenue, in essence, alongside the government center and City Hall. A lot of horn honking, a lot of hooting, a lot of hollering. Obviously, a lot of celebrating here. These people fought long and hard for. I know I'm kind of the courtroom reporter, but I obviously feel that is what they were rewarded with this afternoon, just in the last few minutes. But I also want to bring you into the courtroom in that we do have our first poll notes from our courtroom reporter today. Phalonis Floyd was in the family seat. I know we're going to hear from the Floyds shortly. Their attorney does have the Floyd family ready to go in a news conference shortly, so we'll hear directly from them. But Phalonis Floyd sitting with his elbows on his armrest, Floyd clasped in front, looking downward, not clear if he's praying, weary, or what. Cahill reads the last verdict. Chauvin gives no resistance as a deputy handcuffs him and escorts him to a side room. Phalonis Floyd hugs Jerry Blackwell, Keith Ellison, and the other prosecutor. Ellison and Blackwell heartily shake hands. It did appear Phalonis perhaps saying some prayers just before this verdict was read. So I thought that was some interesting color from inside the courtroom. Again, because of the way cameras were restricted, the defendant did have his mask on, so we didn't necessarily get a clear indication of his reaction. But guilty verdicts, all 3 counts. Judge Cahill, upon the state, did request that Derek Chauvin's bail be revoked. Judge Cahill did agree to that. You saw Derek Chauvin then handcuffed, led away by a Hennepin County deputy. Again, just a few minutes in that courtroom, but history made right there on the 18th floor in the government center behind me.
All right, Paul Blue, thank you very much up there in the government center, nest, as we've called it for the last 3 weeks. Courtney Godfrey is down on the plaza there outside the government center. Also, with reaction from this crowd, elation seemed to be the one word we could attribute to almost everyone that was there, Courtney.
Yeah, Randy, pure joy out here. This is a celebratory crowd. They are celebrating guilty on all 3 counts. This is good news for this crowd. This is what they've been fighting for the last year almost. Now, I will say that they've been chanting George Floyd's name, but they also have been chanting for Dante Wright. They say that now Derek Chauvin is guilty. They now are hoping for guilty charges for Kim Potter. Now, they are also talking about those 3 other officers. They want those 3 other officers to be guilty.
Anna Hart, this isn't Fox News. This is a local Minneapolis affiliate, Fox 9. So their narrative and team might be a little bit different. Yeah, we wouldn't have shown Fox News on here. I just couldn't get a solid stream from PBS or C-SPAN or anything like that. So we went with the local affiliate. Someone asked about the other officers. They're being tried all together. I believe the main charge for them is aiding and abetting, but there may be more to that. I'm not sure when that trial's set.
Post verdict in the Derek Chauvin murder trial.
All right, up on the top right corner of your screen, you see our reporter Babs Santos. He is at 38th in Chicago. Babs, tell us about the mood there now that the verdict has come back guilty on all 3 charges.
It's really just like a party here. At first, when we were waiting for the verdict, it got really quiet. Everyone was gathered around, listening to their phones or whatever they could get around to find out what was happening in the courtroom. As soon as the verdict came in, everybody just erupted in cheers and applause, started yelling, shouting, crying, lots of people hugging. We've seen cars coming by, laying on their horns. So just a lot of excitement here after the verdict read.
Babs, you had interviewed Charles McMillan. He was the 61-year-old man who stopped and tried to talk to George Floyd as he was being taken into custody. And can you describe, since you had a chance to talk to him in person, the emotional toll that it's taken on him to be a witness in this case and also to wait for a verdict?
It's been really emotional. Actually, just before the verdict was read, I was on the phone with his son. He is still in Minnesota, and they were watching it. I talked with him. He said that, you know, a verdict coming back so quickly was a sign that it could be good news for them. At the same time, they didn't know what to expect. So I know they were both at home watching closely to see what would happen with the verdict. And I'm sure wherever they are now, they're happy. We're hoping to talk with them later this afternoon and see how he's doing.
Babs, as you take in all this out there, and I know there's a lot, and there are people all around you right now, you mentioned elation as one of the feelings that is prevalent there at George Floyd Square, which is known by many as now 38th in Chicago. The sense for what happens next there at that site is what?
Well, I've heard people saying that this isn't enough. I heard the name Dante Wright, obviously the unarmed 20-year-old black man who was recently shot and killed in Brooklyn Center. So they're saying this is not enough, but this is a starting point for them, and they are happy with that.
Babs, if you could describe for some of our viewers, there may be people who want to come to that area of 38th in Chicago tonight. Over the past several months, we have described that as sort of a no-go zone.
This is pretty, I don't know if you can see this, but they're literally throwing money in the air. They are just ecstatic here. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah, we see it, Babs.
They're throwing money everywhere. That really sums up how people are feeling. Many people couldn't be happier. Other people still sad that it came to this in the first place. But
Babs, we expect to hear from the George Floyd family and Attorney Benjamin Crump here in a little bit as well, and we'll be sure to carry that as they get ready to address the public. And Alonis in court today, his brother as well. But again, you're looking at the crowds that have gathered. We expect them to continue to build as the night goes on. Very celebratory situation though going on right now. And Babs, I was starting to ask you if folks are wanting to go down there, if they haven't been to this area before, what kind of access will they have? Are law enforcement encouraging them to not come down?
Put it right here. Come to me. Hey.
Babs, let's take you again. You have somebody there?
This is becoming an emotional situation. You're saying take all the money and put it here.
No, right here. That money goes to the people who've been here since day one. It goes to the community. Don't you get that money over here. If you're a part of the community, pick that money up, bring it
They're
up.
picking it up and doing as he says, really. Throwing the money right where George Floyd's body lay. The money's everywhere, hitting me in the face.
I think the concept there is to reward the community who has been there behind that site since May 25th. There's been a lot of discussion about what George Floyd Square or 38th in Chicago should become in the future, how it should serve that community, how it should serve the entire community of Minnesota. And my presumption is, based on what I can hear there, is he wants that money, whatever it is, to be there in that community, to stay in that community for whatever purpose the future holds for 38th and Chicago, its people, and that particular site.
All right, Mitty Hicks is also at 38th in Chicago, and I know, Mitty, you have been with people who burst into tears when this verdict was read.
Right. Yeah, that's right. There were a lot of tears here. And one of the lead organizers, we had Marsha here because can you just really tell us your reaction when you heard that verdict?
I'm really thrilled for the family of George Floyd. Like the rest of you saw the video of their loved one being killed by the Minneapolis police. And so I'm gratified that they could get a measure of justice. As we stand here in solidarity, looking for justice from the city of Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota for 38th in Chicago, we can only hope that they continue to strive toward reaching number 24, which is the conviction of all 4 officers who were there on that tape and contributed to the death of George Floyd. And until then, no justice, no street.
A lot of you are saying here today, you know, that it's so much bigger than this verdict. What is next for you all? What do you all want to see happen next, even after, you know, the other 3 go to trial?
What we want to see is the city become a beacon to the entire country of what it looks like when they cooperate with the citizens in order to ideate a world beyond traditional policing, where we are not terrorized on our own streets, where we are afforded opportunity and not get overpromised and underdelivered and overpoliced and overcriminalized, where we get a measure of liberty and freedom and justice that other people in the state are afforded. We want justice. And if you read the 24 demands of Justice Resolution 001 at bit.ly/George Floyd Square-A, you'll see at least 24 ways that we give the city and the county and the state and the country of what justice looks like and how we can get to it.
And my last question, what does this verdict today signify for the rest of the country as all eyes are looking at Minneapolis?
I think it's a victory for, I don't know, facts. We all saw what happened. It was really indisputable, though we took many days to come to that conclusion. So hopefully, as more people use technology, when they are interacting with people who are agents of the state, then maybe the rest of the country will believe us when we say that we are in fact treated unfairly, that we are victimized, that we are terrorized, and maybe, just maybe, we'll do something to change it.
Thank you, Marsha. And Marsha has been here since the very beginning, you know, since George Floyd died. And again, you mentioned a lot of cheers, a lot of claps, but we saw a lot of tears. And, you know, we've been talking to people, you know, as that verdict was reached. And another thing that we've been hearing is that people in this community feel like there's a big weight lifted off of their shoulders. A lot of people feel like there is a lot of relief after that verdict. We even saw people, used to be a gas station, obviously, and at one point there was a sign, and I'll have Eric come a little bit closer so we can see where this sign that says "Justice for George Floyd." So before the verdict that said "Justice for George Floyd trial," okay? Now that says "Justice served." You see that at the bottom. And again, a lot of tears, a lot of excitement. At one point when that verdict was reached, we saw people drop to their knees, just crying and throwing their hands up. And again, the main sentiment here is that a lot of people in this community feel like there is a big sigh of relief. Back to you.
All right, Mitty Hicks, 38th in Chicago, an emotional release there for a lot of people. Thank you, Mitty. All right, we want to go to Karen Scullin, who's in downtown Minneapolis, outside the Government Center with a crowd there. And Karen, you spoke with Maurice Hall, George Floyd's friend who was with him that day, that he lost his life. So tell me about the crowd that's around you right now.
Right, and I know a lot of people have been saying it is a very celebratory atmosphere. It is. It's kind of a happy chaos, I would describe it. But I'm with three people right here, right now, that I kind of want to speak to about what this actually means. Not just that everybody's happy, but really what it means. And right after the verdict was read, you three were very, very emotional. I saw tears flowing. Tell me what was going through your mind here, Connie.
I was just really thinking, thanking God for this verdict, because this is something that I've never seen. I was so grateful to God. We have been praying. Our team is faith-based, and we've been praying for this verdict. We've been praying for our community to stay safe. We're grateful to the city of Minneapolis, Mayor Jacob Fry, Director Sasha Cotton, Chief Aaron Donald for having the foresight to say we need to bring community into this. So we're one of 7 organizations that was brought on to help keep the peace, help people with trauma, and that's what we've been doing over this time.
And how do you think this plays out going forward? There was a lot of fear about some unrest, that kind of thing. You all work to try to keep the peace, right? Tell me what you think, how this is going to play out.
Ultimately, I think that, just like Connie had said, this is God. God prevailed again. That it was His justice again. I think with all of humanity, I think that we're going to come together as a unity, one, as a collectiveness. I think that the time is now that we start having more love and care out there for each other, and not just throwing a cold shoulder. I think that this is a big time for evolution, for us for the human race. Us down here on planet Earth. So. It was beautiful seeing the clouds open up and sunshine through, so it was, just that kind of little second push, that we are loved outside of the justice system. That was God's justice right there. And, and us being vulnerable out here, us vulnerable, and just as, with everything that's been going on with COVID and everything, a lot of us were really open. When you're vulnerable, you're open to what's around you. And right now, that was God's love. And so now we're all open to that love, and it's just a beautiful thing because we're going to be changing for the better.
And you agree, sir? You think that this, in a way, like she's saying, it kind of has brought people together? I feel like that's what you were saying right there. You agree with that?
So in my opinion, it definitely brought people together simply because we're standing here for a just cause, finally actually getting a chance to see American justice for American citizens. I think it's a beautiful thing because over the history says that, these kind of cases get thrown out. The guys that look like me get shot down by the police are considered criminals, and that their lives don't really have any value. And today we found out that our lives do have value. Yeah. And the other part about that is that now we have to release that anxiety that I once had that doesn't have to be transferred to my grandson when he decides to get behind the wheel and go outside in public. So I feel good. I feel rejuvenated. This is a step in the right direction, but it is not the last barrier that we are facing. Police brutality is definitely one of the issues, but we are also facing redlining, gentrification, housing gaps, education gaps, and also resource gaps in regards to finding equitable jobs. So, and the violence.
So your work isn't over yet, is what you're saying.
Yeah. We're going to celebrate in the community. Restoration Incorporated, these guys are going to put on some, get some grills going, and get some happy music. Yeah, we're doing it this weekend. Thank you so much.
You bet. George Floyd, his pain was not in vain. So he definitely God rest his soul.
All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. It's kind of a celebratory atmosphere, but I think a lot of anxiety lifting for a lot of folks who were, even right before the verdict, you could feel the anxiety and the intensity that was going on. Definitely that has been lifted. The girls are kind of firing up out here. But as these ladies said, it's even more than George Floyd. It's promise for them, they believe, going forward. that they will find justice in the court system. So they're all hoping for peace. And Kelsey, you mentioned that I had interviewed Maurice Hall earlier in the day here. I did. He also was calling for peace. He, of course, was the gentleman who was in the car with George Floyd and his girlfriend when all of this went down. He said he is asking for peace because George Floyd would want peace. So everybody wanting it to be not a chaotic, unrestful night, but rather a peaceful night, and hopefully it will be. We'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Karen. And then the young woman you were just talking with saying we're coming together. The time is now, and this is just the beginning. So thank you. We'll come back to you in just a bit.
We do know we're going to get a reaction not only from George Floyd's family, but we'll also get reaction from his civil legal team as well as other civic leaders in the city of Minneapolis. Courtney Godfrey standing by outside the Hennepin County courthouse there, the government center where this verdict came down about an hour ago now. Courtney, I know you had a chance to talk to some people there on what this means beyond just this verdict.
Yeah, Randy, I just happen to be standing next to several city council members. I've got Philippe Cunningham with me now, city council member Philippe Cunningham. Philippe, this verdict came down. How are you feeling for this city?
Yeah, for both our city and honestly the country as well, just feeling immense relief, joy that, the Black community's value is reflected at least in this decision, so folks can feel that and be in this moment. So I'm feeling that's where I'm at right now.
Minneapolis has been the center of the news internationally for the last several months. First we had George Floyd, now we have Daunte Wright. As a city council member, where do we go from here as a city now with this guilty verdict?
I think that it is incredibly important for us in this moment to not get lost in it. We have to keep leaning into the necessity of change. The system is still broken. We got a good outcome with this particular decision, but that's one in a sea of challenges that we've been having. This system is fundamentally broken down to its core, and so we need to be digging into the work. We've been doing this for a while as a city council with the Safety for All budget plan. We brought forward the charter amendment. I have brought forward a staff direction about unarmed traffic enforcement. Really building out these systems are the way that we need to move forward as a city to make sure that what has happened to George Floyd and Daunte Wright and many, many others doesn't happen again.
Now, you touched on it there. You've been one of the city council members very vocal in breaking down the existing police department and rebuilding a new public safety system. How does this verdict help that cause, and if at all?
I think that this verdict is more for the city than
Courtney, we got to cut you off here. We're going to hear from the legal team, the prosecution, the state's legal team on this verdict. Attorney General Keith Ellison now taking to the podium. They will make a statement following the verdict of guilty on all three charges. Let's listen to Attorney General Keith Ellison. He is joined by the legal team that put this case together, the prosecution.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keith Ellison. I'm the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota. And since the investigation and prosecution of this case began last May, everyone involved has pursued one goal: justice. We pursued justice wherever it led. When I became the lead prosecutor for the case, I asked for time and patience to review the facts, gather evidence, and prosecute for the murder of George Floyd to the fullest extent the law allowed. I want to thank the community for giving us that time and allowing us to do our work. That long, hard, painstaking work has culminated today. I would not call today's verdict justice, however, because justice implies true restoration. But it is accountability, which is the first step towards justice. And now the cause of justice is in your hands. And when I say your hands, I mean the hands of the people of the United States. George Floyd mattered. He was loved by his family and his friends. His death shocked the conscience of our community, our country, the whole world. He was loved by his family and friends. But that isn't why he mattered. He mattered because he was a human being. And there is no way we can turn away from that reality. The people who stopped
and raised their voices on May 25th, 2020 were a bouquet of humanity, a phrase I stole from my friend Jerry Blackwell. A bouquet of humanity, old, young, men and women, black and white, a man from the neighborhood just walking to get a drink, a child going to buy a snack with her cousin, an off-duty firefighter on her way to a community garden, brave young women, teenagers, who press record on their cell phones. Why did they stop? They didn't know George Floyd. They didn't know he had a beautiful family. They didn't know he had been a great athlete. And they didn't know he was a proud father or that he had people in his life who loved him. They stopped and raised their voices, and they even challenged authority because they saw his humanity. They stopped and they raised their voices because they knew that what they were seeing was wrong. They didn't need to be medical professionals or experts in the use of force. They knew it was wrong, and they were right. These community members, this bouquet of humanity, did it again in this trial. They performed simple yet profound acts of courage. They told the truth, and they told the whole world the truth about what they saw. They were vindicated by the chief of police, by Minneapolis' longest-serving police officer, and by many other police officers who stepped up and testified as to what they saw and to what they knew. What happened on that street was wrong. We owe it, and we owe our gratitude to fulfilling we owe them our gratitude for fulfilling their civic duty and for their courage in telling the truth. To countless people in Minnesota and across the United States who joined them in peacefully demanding justice for George Floyd, we say, all of us, thank you. In the coming days, more may seek to express themselves again through petition and demonstration. I urge everyone to honor the legacy of George Floyd by doing so calmly, legally, and peacefully. I urge everyone to continue the journey to transformation and justice. It's in your hands now. I also want to address the Floyd family, if I may. Over the last year, the family of George Floyd had to relive again and again the worst day of their lives when they lost their brother, their father, their friend. I'm profoundly grateful to them for giving us the time we needed to prosecute this case. They have shown the world what grace and class and courage really look like. Although a verdict alone cannot end their pain, I hope it's another step on the long path toward healing for them. There's no replacing your beloved Perry, or Floyd, as his friends called him, but he is the one who sparked a worldwide movement, and that's important. We owe our thanks to the men and women of the jury who gave many hours of their time and attention to carefully listening to the evidence, weighing the facts, rendering a verdict. They are regular people from all walks of life, a lot like that bouquet of humanity on that corner on May 25th and in that courtroom. They answered the call, and they served in a landmark trial. They now deserve to return to their lives. If they ask you to respect their privacy, we ask you to honor that request. I want to acknowledge the remarkable team that helped us prosecute the case. We put everything we had into this prosecution. We presented the best case that we could, and the jury heard us, and we're grateful for that. We had the sole burden of proof in the case, and history shows that winning cases like these can be difficult. I'm proud of every hour, every minute, and every ounce of effort we put in this case. And let me tell you, we spent many hours working on this case, did we not? We, week after week, committee meeting after committee meeting, this team never let up and it never quit. We fought every day, and we did it together. The Attorney General's office together with the Hennepin County Attorney's office. Thank you, sir. And we did it together. I'm deeply grateful to everyone who worked on the case. Most of these folks will tell you it's a bad idea to put together a team of all Michael Jordans. Nobody would want to pass the ball. This team, that was their true strength, is sharing the load, passing the ball, understanding that all of us together are smarter than any one of us alone. And that worked. Although the verdict has been rendered, this is not the end. In the coming weeks, the court will determine sentencing, and later this summer, we expect to present another case. We will not be talking about that. This verdict reminds us how hard it is to make enduring change. And I just want to finish by sharing some important historical legacy, if you allow me. In 1968, the Kerner Commission was formed to investigate the causes of uprisings across major American cities. And a man named Dr. Kenneth Clark, a famous African-American psychologist who, along with his equally accomplished psychologist wife, Mamie, contributed to compelling research in the Brown versus Board of Education case. And Dr. Clark testified at the Kerner Commission. And I want to quote you what he said. I read that report, the one in the 1919 riot in Chicago, and it was as if I were reading the report of investigating the committee of the Harlem riot in 1935, the report on investigating the Harlem riot in 1943, and the report of the Macomb Commission on the Watts riot. I must say again in candor to you, the members of this commission, it's like a kind of an Alice in Wonderland with the same moving picture reshown over and over again, the same analysis, the same recommendation, and the same in action. Those are the words of Dr. Clark in 1968. Here we are in 2021. Here we are in 2021, still addressing the same problem. Since Dr. Clark testified, we have seen Rodney King, Abner Louima, Oscar Grant, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Freddie Gray, Sandra Bland, Philando Castile, Laquan McDonald, Stephon Clark, Atiana Jefferson, Anton Black, Breonna Taylor, and now Dante Wright and Adam Toledo. This has to end. We need true justice. That's not one case. That is a social transformation that says that nobody's beneath the law and no one is above it. This verdict reminds us that we must make enduring systemic societal change. More than a month ago, months before George Floyd was murdered, the Minnesota Public Safety Commissioner John Harrington and I released the recommendations of our working group on reducing deadly force encounters with law enforcement. What all of us in that working group, including law enforcement, wanted is for everyone to go home safe. Anytime someone doesn't, everyone's lives are changed forever. We need to use this verdict as an inflection point. What if we just prevented the problem instead of having to try these cases? We don't want any more community members dying at the hands of law enforcement and their families' lives ruined. We don't want any more law enforcement members having to face criminal charges and their families' lives ruined. We don't want any more communities torn apart. One way to prevent this is to get into a new relationship where we as a society re-examine the use of force and our old subtle assumptions. I'm so proud of Chief Arredondo and the Minneapolis police officers who, by their testimony, said enough is enough. And another way to prevent it is by acknowledging and lifting up everyone's humanity, helping communities heal, and officers be well. Another way to prevent it is with accountability. Passing laws and instituting policies and training is important, but they must be more than words on paper, and there must be accountability for violating them. With this verdict, we have brought some accountability. Finally, this verdict demands us to never give up the hope that we can make enduring change. Generations of people said slavery would never end. Generations said Jim Crow would never end. Generation said women would never be equal to men. Generation said if you were different in any way, you could never be a full and equal member of our society. Today, we have to end this travesty of recurring, enduring deaths at the hands of law enforcement. Those beliefs are things we have to focus our attention on. And as I now do close, I just want to say to you, the work of our generation is to put unaccountable law enforcement behind us. It's time to transform the relationship between community and the people who are sworn to protect them from one that is mistrustful, suspicious, and in some cases terrifying, into one that is empathetic, compassionate, and affirming. That will benefit everyone, including police officers who deserve to serve in a profession that is honored, in departments where they don't have to worry about colleagues who don't follow the rules. Now that work is in your hands. The work of our generation is to put an end to the vestiges of Jim Crow and the centuries of trauma, and finally put an end to racism. We can end it. It doesn't have to be with us into the future if we decide now to have true liberty and justice for all. The work of our generation is to say goodbye to old practices that don't serve us anymore, and to put them all behind us. One conviction, even one like this one can create a powerful new opening to shed old practices and reset relationships. So with that, I just want to say that I do hope that people step forward and understand that nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. You can do something the way like everyday people like Donna Williams and Genevieve Hanson and Christopher Martin and Charles McMillan and all those teenagers and young people stepped up and did something. You can do things like help pass the George Floyd Justice and Accountability Act. It's in your hands. Let's get the work done. And now I'd like to invite my friend and partner in justice, Michael Freeman, Hennepin County Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. First, I want once again to extend my heartfelt sympathies to the families of George Floyd. I hope today's verdict provides some measure of closure for them. And let me say what a tremendous job Attorney General Keith Ellison did in recruiting and organizing a talented team of prosecutors and supporting staff.
Thank you, Daniel Slapkoff.
Jerry Blackwell, Steve Flesher, and Aaron Eldridge were exceptional. Their use of experts, evidence, and witnesses left the jury no alternative but to find Mr. Chauvin guilty. We and the people of Minnesota should rightly be proud of these four and your entire staff of volunteers and assistant attorney generals and the jobs they did over the last 7 weeks. I'm also proud from the moment that the Hennepin County Attorney's Office charged Derek Chauvin with murder and manslaughter 4 days after George Floyd's murder, our team worked long hours side by side with the Attorney General's team. Managing Attorney Gene Burdorf did legal analysis and writing. Assistant Hennepin County Attorney Joshua Larson did witness prep and strategy development. And Vernona Boswell, manager of our Victim Services Division, has been in direct contact for nearly a year now with the family of George Floyd. Victim and witness advocates Jessica Emmerman and Keith Johnson manage all the witnesses, civilian and professional. My two deputies, Lolita Ioa and Andy Lefevre, and I supplied strategic advice and coordination to this talented team 24/7. These guilty verdicts against Mr. Chauvin cannot be the end of the conversation about officer killings of civilians. We need to prevent these killings in the first place. The Minnesota legislature, as it moves into the final 3 weeks of the session, must pass a number of bills that will make policing fairer and safer for all, but especially for Black men and women and other people of color. I've been lobbying legislators to pass these critical bills. If they fail, then it will be time once again to have a statewide task force to hold hearings and come up with model legislation intending to put an end to these deaths. I am prepared to be part of that fight. Again, Keith, great job.
Thank you, Mike. And now I'd like to ask the trial lawyers to share some thoughts if they have any. But before I do that, I'd like to myself thank a number of people. And I'm just going to start by, why don't we just have our trial lawyers come forward, and then we'll thank our whole team. So, Jerry, Steve, which one of y'all want to do it? Thank you, Attorney General Ellison. And when I say thank you to Attorney General Ellison, I want to thank you for calling me and calling me back into public service, which is something that I was able to do as a federal prosecutor, as a state prosecutor, as an assistant county attorney in the United States Army. When I left private practice, I thought those days were behind me, but I received a call, and it was from Keith Ellison. And he gave me the opportunity to step back into public service, something that is so important to me, something that I cherish. And I would just encourage anyone, if you get a call like that as an attorney, it's a privileged life. It's a noble profession. And if somebody calls you and they ask you for help, don't overthink it. Just do it. As I found in my career, you get a lot more than you give. I'm honored to have stood with the Floyd family, have stood with the state of Minnesota as we go through this painful process together. And it's been my privilege to practice with this incredible, gifted trial team. And so I stand here today in gratitude. I'm thankful. I want to thank the jury for their service, for doing what was right and decent and correct and speaking the truth and finding the right verdict in this case.
I'm Jerry Blackwell. My comments are going to be fairly brief. I want to first say thank you to all of these selfless servants that you see standing here and the many more that you do not see, who have the willingness, the courage, the passion, the intentional fortitude to get into good trouble. They stepped into the light and they shine. And for that, I say thank you. I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for the opportunity that I've had to serve. Now, no verdict can bring George Perry Floyd back to us. But this verdict does give a message to his family that he was somebody, that his life mattered, that all of our lives matter. And that's important. And I also hope that this verdict, for all of the rest of the collective, all of us, will help us further along the road toward a better humanity. Thank you all.
Matt Frank?
Well, I can't really follow that too much, but I just want to say that it's been really a privilege to work with this awesome group of dedicated, hardworking people in this endeavor. But it's also been just a total privilege to get to know the Floyd family and spend time with them and get to know them. Because first and foremost, this is for you, George Floyd, and for your family and friends. Thank you.
So let me also thank very publicly Aaron Eldridge, who was part of our trial team, who's not here today, but was indispensable. Lola Velasquez Agalu, thank you, Lola, for a wonderful job that you did. Josh Larson. Josh, thanks so much, my friend. Zuri Balmakam. Thank you, Zuri. And Natasha Robinson. I want to thank you and the next generation of justice seekers. Dion Dodd, I want to thank you. Dion, where are you? Thank you very much. And I want to thank you, Vernona Boswell. You are a star. And I also want to thank so many other people. But with that, we're going to close our comments right now and just say that we're prepared to continue to pursue justice. Thank you.
Minnesota's Attorney General Keith Ellison thanking his legal team that he led, the trial lawyers. It was a fairly lengthy but very genuine expression of their thankfulness to all those that worked on this case. Steve Schlischer was one, Jerry Blackwell, Matt Frank, all the trial lawyers. One of the things that Keith Ellison said, this is not justice. He said, this is accountability. And he asked people to demonstrate calmly and peacefully, and they look toward the next series of trial, which is in August, of the 3 other officers who were also charged in the death of George Floyd. We're also expecting to hear from Mr. Crump, which of course is George Floyd's family's civil lawyer. We'll have much more on that as well, but we continue to watch what's happening out there on the streets with our reporters, and they are at 38th in Chicago. They're outside the Hennepin Government Center as well. So let's take some of that. We know Tom Lydon is there. Amy, Kelsey, Tom has been down there. He's seen this unfold from the beginning.
And we watched Tom during the riots, even, you might remember. He lives down in that area.
So to everyone tuning in, Ben had to, if you came in after DJ Exclusive and Ben left, Ben will be on Roland Martin actually right about now at 6 o'clock if you're interested in tuning into the Roland Martin show stream. Otherwise, we'll probably keep this going. I'm going to give this another 10 or 15 minutes just in case the defense speaks. Not that anyone really wants to hear from the defense, but, you know, just to have that on the stream if possible. But otherwise, we'll probably wrap the stream in the next little bit.
Agape, a church that's right over here. Not CEO, I'm sorry. Elders, and Steve Floyd, also with Agape. Tell me where it goes from here. Obviously, one of the messages from the crowd here today has been, this is the beginning. Where does it go for your work here at 38th in Chicago?
Well, it's exactly what you said. It's the beginning. It's the beginning of a long journey. Right now, we got one conviction, or 3 convictions. With one of the officers, we need convictions for the other 3, and we're also waiting on Dante. So we got a lot of work to do right now.
Let me ask you, Steve. You know, there's been lots of talk about 38th in Chicago. What does the future hold? There has been violence here. There has been a safety issue here. What do you think the future holds for this particular intersection over the next few weeks and really months and years ahead?
It's totally a positive thing, because even through all of the trauma and things that we've been through out here, and watch the community develop and come together, till we understand after 10 to 12, 11 months, we understand what it means to be community. I mean, we understand what it means for people to be in their place and do what they have to do. Well, we don't need police. That's one of the things we learned out here, is that what it will be like without police. And we fought through it, and in that fight, it developed a community that say, hey, we're going to continue to build. And that's what we are about, the Agape movement. And our motto is transforming street energy into community energy. So all of the people that was in gang involvement and doing those things, we're transforming their lives and giving them all type of training with mental health and everything. So it's a positive future to build for this whole community.
And historically, the 30s were kind of Bloods territory back in the day, but it's a whole new group, much younger, much different. We had an interesting discussion, Alfonso, before we went on camera, talking about the role of police in neighborhoods. I think there are communities that were saying, defund the police. We need the police. We need to protect the police to protect us. Can those two truths stand together? There are people who want police protection, and there are people who are afraid of it. How do we hold on to those two mutual truths from different groups? How do we navigate that?
One of the things that we're asking for in our community is to have police in our community that's from our community, that's familiar with our community, that knows the way the community is ran and knows the different trends of different people in the community. Most of the time, we got officers that come here that know nothing about the community. So they come here with chips on their shoulders, mad, scared, and just killing. And we're tired of it. We're scared, like me. I'm scared if an officer even pulls behind me right now. So I mean, it's traumatic, man. So that's one of the main things. We need people that look like us working in our community.
As you said, it's a beginning, right?
It's a beginning.
All right, Alfonso Williams, Steve Floyd, thank you very much. They're with Agape. Just one final note for you. I was struck by people's reactions afterwards. I went around, asking them what they thought, and I was really struck by a woman with her child. She had tears in her eyes, and her young son. And she said, I thought it was important that he was here today. I think that's important for him to see this and the reaction here at 38th in Chicago. She said this is very much history that we're witnessing. Back to you guys.
Yeah, Tom Lydon, they're at 38th in Chicago, the scene of George Floyd's death, the scene of a big gathering tonight. And again, Keith Ellison saying, our Attorney General saying, that a bouquet of humanity, that's the people that stood up for George Floyd in that moment and in the days that followed.
A great example there, Tom, interviewing some local folks who've been there on the ground long before George Floyd. These are folks who have been fighting for a moment like this to see some semblance of justice.
Asking for police who are from their community, live in their community, that whole neighborhood policing kind of concept.
And we may see some of these changes come from this. All right, we want to send it over to Randy.
Yeah, that bouquet of humanity you mentioned also, the Attorney General extended to the jury, as we know, was a very diverse group of jurors that came down with these 3 guilty verdicts. Karen Scullin is outside the Hennepin County Government Center, of course, another very important focal point of today's decision by that jury. She joins us now. Actually, let's go to this. This is Al Sharpton. He's with a group of people. Ben Crump is there as well, the attorney for the family.
Say anything, we're going to have a prayer. When we first came to Minneapolis and went
So
to
for those that may not know, behind Reverend Sharpton is Ben Crump, the attorney for the Floyd family, and to Ben Crump's side on the left is George Floyd's brother.
That's to the side. The family came in, and this family has stood together for the last 11 months, watching this video go over and over and over again. This family stood with pain, suffering, and not knowing what the future held, because so many families went and got nothing. They thanked God when they got the indictment, which would not have happened had not the Attorney General Keith Ellison took this case. And Keith Ellison fought and put together a team that made this possible. And this is the first time in the history of this state that a white police officer has been convicted, less known convicted of a murder. This is the first time in a long array of fights that we've seen 3 counts, guilty at all 3. We don't find pleasure in this. We don't celebrate a man going to jail. We would have rather George be alive. Amen. But we celebrate that because young people, white and black, some castigated, many that are here tonight, marched and kept marching and kept going. Many of them looked down on, but they kept marching and wouldn't let this die. And this is an assurance to them that if we don't give up, that we can win some rounds. But the war and the fight is not over. Just 2 days from now, we're going to have to deal with the funeral of Dante Wright in the same county, the same area. We still have cases to fight, but this gives us the energy to fight on. And we are determined that we're going to fight until we make federal law the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. Must be law. We want to thank all that were involved, especially the Attorney General and the governor and others. We want to thank President Biden, who the first time he came out of his house during the campaign, he flew to Houston and met with the family and Attorney Crump and I. And he sat there, and I will never forget, he said to George's daughter, and I heard you say your father is going to change the world. Well, we can now tell George's daughter she was right. Her father has begun the changing of the world for real. But before we do anything, we first want to pray.
There you go.
And thank God. But somehow God made a way. He had mercy. We believe in a God that can even get through the cracks in the jury room and bring conscience and bring truth. And that jury, we want to thank them for letting God give them the strength wherever they are tonight. We want them to know we broke down in tears when we heard the verdict. We had to hold each other and hug in tears because too many nights we've cried. Many of us for decades spent nights in jail. But today we can wipe our tears away and fight on for another day. There's sunlight. We're going to keep going till we bring it for the Eric Gardners and the Breonna Taylors, whose boyfriend is here tonight. Kenny Walker. Sean Bell. So many that did not get this night. This night is for them. Let us pray. Let's lock arms and pray like we can, folks. Where? Come on, Brandon. Where's Malone? Yeah, come on. You and Rodney, come on front. You know you're hiding now. Brother Chris, get next to the Attorney General there. Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for giving us the strength to stand together. Sometimes we would question each other. Sometimes we say this is just going to be a waste of time. But somehow you touch us in the midnight hours and teach us to hold on. And that if we would be faithful over a few things, you'd give us the victory over many. We thank you because we know it was not any doing of ours, but your loving kindness and your tender mercy that made tonight possible. Bless those that worked, that made this prosecution something they couldn't deny. Bless those policemen that got on the stand and testified against another policeman. Bless the jury that listened to the evidence and didn't listen to those that may criticize them for doing this. Bless the prosecutor, Keith Ellison, and his staff that did their job, even though they didn't know what the outcome would be. Bless Ben Crump in a special way, that worked tirelessly, that jumped on planes and left his family to make sure that justice would rain down. Thank you for all of the civil and human rights leaders that stood up. And we thank you for the nameless grandmas and grandpas that would get on their knees and ask you to give us a victory this time. And Lord, as we give you the thanks and give you the praise, let George know that his name is going down in history. They may have put their knee on his neck, but he will now be a figure that we will take the knees off our necks now, and we give you the praise. Thank you. And God, we give you the glory. These blessings we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Let me say that I want to bring on now a man who has symbolized the fight for justice. He didn't seek the role, but he rose to the occasion. America, for many years, didn't have someone to stand for us. The last 4 years, we didn't have an attorney general's office that would even hear our cry. But we had been raised to believe that God always has a ram in the bush. And God has a way of taking the most humble of people and raising them as up. We had an attorney general in Black America that has represented these cases with the acumen and skill of one that was raised in the South but came to claim this nation in a new direction. I bring you the Attorney General for Black America, Ben Crump.
Thank you, Reverend Al Sharpton, not only for your mentorship, not only for being a great civil rights leader, but for being a moral authority, especially making sure no matter what happened, that we always maintained the moral high ground, knowing that we were on the right side of history as we fought for justice for George Perry Floyd Jr. Say his name. I am a member of a great team of very talented attorneys. And I'm going to acknowledge that, we got no bangers in the campus, Reverend Jackson. And the apples in it.
That's right.
I want to acknowledge these great group of lawyers and then the family members
2 or 3 of the lawyers will address you. And then at that time, we will hear from the family members before we take any of your questions. I want to acknowledge a great lawyer from Chicago, Illinois, one of the best I've ever had a chance to work with, Attorney Tony Ramanucci. I want to recognize my partner on the front line in this case, one of the best lawyers at Ben Onum. He hails from Atlanta, Georgia, Attorney Chris Stewart. His law partner, Attorney Justin Miller. Attorney Madeline Simmons. A great Minnesota lawyers, Attorney Jeff Storms. Raise your hand, Jeff. Attorney Michelle Godot. And who else we got here? Anybody else? We have Attorney Scott Masterson, who's not present. Attorney Pavani. I said Michelle. We got Michelle. And it's just a great group of lawyers. And I want to let you know we have present here with the family here in Minneapolis for this historic day. We have George Floyd's brothers. We have Philonise Floyd. We have Rodney Floyd. We have Brandon Williams, who's George Floyd's nephew, but was more like a son to him. They call him Woo back in the Third Ward. We have Keita Floyd, Philonice's wife. We have, where Terrence at? Terrence, New York, where you at? We got Terrence Floyd. His sisters who are not with us, but we should absolutely acknowledge Bridget Floyd, who hails from North Carolina, his sisters Latanya and Jaja, who hail from Houston, Texas. We have his cousins, Sharita McGee, Tidra McGee, and Tara Brown. And we have the mother of his daughter, Gianni Floyd. We have Roxy Washington, and we have Gianni. And so I'll make some brief remarks, and then we're going to have Attorney Stewart. Angela, cousin Paris. Angela, cousin Paris, and Uncle Selma, Vince. Any more Floyd family? I know it's a big group. AD. AD. The man he came to Minneapolis with. And Darren. So I'll make some brief remarks, and then we're going to have Attorney Stewart and Attorney Ramanucci make some brief remarks, and then we're going to hear from this family, and we're going to try to leave here today knowing that America is a better country. Yes. America, let's pause for a moment to proclaim this historical moment, not just for the legacy of George Floyd, but for the legacy of America. The legacy of trying to make America for all Americans, so that George Floyd's victory and America's quest for equal justice under the law would be intertwined. America, let's frame this moment as a moment where we finally are getting close to living up to our Declaration of Independence, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equally, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that amongst them are life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Where America, that means all of us. That means black people. That means Hispanic people. That means Native people. That means Asian people. That means all of us, America. We frame this moment for all of us, not just for George Floyd. This is a victory for those who champion humanity over inhumanity, those who champion justice over injustice, those who champion morals.
Thank you, Detroit Microsound.
America, let's lean into this moment and let's make sure, Reverend Al, that this moment will be documented for our children yet unborn as they continue on the journey to justice, knowing that the blood of George Floyd will give them a trail to find a way to a better America, a more just America, where Breonna Taylor gets an opportunity to sleep in peace at night without the police busting in her front door. A more just America, where Ahmaud Arbery gets to run free and not be lynched for jogging while black. A more just America, where Jacob Blake and Anthony McClain and Walter Scott and Laquan McDonald and all these other black men, Terrence Crutcher, who was shot in the back while running away like Dante Wright was just a week ago, because for some reason, black men running away from the police is more dangerous than young white men who commit mass murders and walk towards the police with an assault weapon, Reverend Bryant, like Kyle Rittenhouse in Kenosha, Wisconsin. America, let this be the precedent.
Yes.
Let this be the precedent where we live up to the high ideals and the promises when we say liberty and justice for all. Those sun-kissed children are included in all. Those children who overcame slavery, the Middle Passage, the Dred Scott decision, Plessy v. Ferguson, Jim Crow, and his much smarter, wiser son, Jim Crow Jr. Esquire. Let this be the precedence where we overcome systematic racism and oppression, and that we are a better people, and we will leave our children a better world for us all. At this time, we will hear from a great lawyer, because nobody does this alone. It's always a team effort. And we have the lawyers, the preachers, the civil rights leaders, the education leaders, the activists.
Yes, yes.
Let's give a big round of applause for the activists.
Yeah, that's right.
The people who stayed in the streets.
That's right.
The people who came nationally, but more importantly, the people who were here locally, who were standing up for George Floyd on 38th and Chicago Avenue.
Thank you, Sherry Moore. Loving that crowd outside Cup Foods. That store is that will never be, that site will never be forgotten.
Don't forget about the witness.
Donna Williams. Donna won't be here.
Yeah.
So we love you, Donna.
Tom, thank you.
My brother, Attorney Chris Stewart. And Tony, you coming up next.
Come on. Slide right here.
You all right?
We got Steve on.
Steve Harvey saying full effect.
The first thing that happened when we heard the verdict is that we all teared up and embraced. So don't confuse.
So anyone that's just tuning in, Ben and Bubba had to bounce a little bit ago. Ben's on Roland Martin right now, or at least he should be if you're interested. I'm going to be cutting the stream in about 5 minutes, hoping we can hear from George Floyd's brother before then. But I'll be cutting the stream at 6:30 Eastern time.
Those are the tears that someone will weep tomorrow when they are taken advantage of in an interaction with law enforcement. But today the tears are pure joy.
Yes.
Pure joy and pure shock, because days like this don't happen. The whole world should not have to rally to get justice for one man.
Yes. Wow.
But that's what happened.
Amen. Wow.
This wasn't a city case. This wasn't one family's case. This was the entire world's case. And justice finally came.
Yes.
But it shouldn't have to be so hard to attain this level of justice in cases like this, when we can see with our own eyes the only difference is the color of skin. And that's the change that we all want. That's not a change that's outrageous. Yes, law enforcement have a dangerous job. They have to carry a spear and a sword and a shield. But all too often, African Americans only get the spear or the sword.
Wow.
We need more of the shield.
Yeah, amen.
Yes.
Amen.
Because this is not a case against every officer. My life was saved by 2 law enforcement officers years ago. So I will never throw every cop under the bus. But we will put more cops in jail when you kill someone for no reason, just because they're black.
Amen.
And we can find a unifying purpose between law enforcement and the African American community by changes, starting with the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act.
Amen.
A beautifully written bill that will help protect the community and solve policing. And the main question is, will we let politics divide us? Because that's what happens. Republican or Democrat, you're going to stick to your side. Unify, as Ben has been saying, as Rev has been saying, and get this bill passed and save people so that you don't have to board up your own cities for situations like this. And if not, we'll see you next time when it's time to vote.
Amen.
You've seen what's happened across this country.
Say it.
Say it.
And we shouldn't have to be so happy when we finally get one. But we are in celebration for Gianna, for Roxy, who has stood strong this entire time, for the brothers and sisters, for the activists like Tamika and everybody out here, for this entire group. And it wouldn't have happened without every single one of y'all, white or black people out there praying for this family, getting love and support. And we love all of you all. Let this be a changing point in America for policing in a positive way, and let's unify. Thank you, my brother.
I love you, man.
Attorney Tony Romanucci from Chicago, Illinois.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Ben said, my name is Tony Romanucci. I'm smiling here today, not for myself, but really for the entire country and for the world that's watching. I know that on behalf of the family and for everyone who's here today, that we stand here before you feeling a tremendous amount of joy and eternal hope. For me, 36 years ago, I was a young public defender in Cook County. Reverend Jackson, I know you know that place very well. And that's where I was introduced to the marginalization of black and brown people. And for now, this is the 36th year I've seen it come through. I really feel that this country has turned a corner. But I'm going to tell you, it was a tough corner to turn, and it couldn't have been done. And I'm going to reach out to you all, the press, for spreading the message, to the strength and wisdom of Ben Crump, to you, Reverend Al Sharpton, Reverend Jackson, the attorneys, Chris, Justin, Madeline, Jeff, Michelle, Ivani, Nicolette, Ian, all the teams in all the cities in this country, the Attorney General and their magnificent prosecution team. They did it, right?
Yes, they did.
They tied up every loose thread for that jury. They let them follow it right through. They showed them how to prosecute and how to convict.
Yes, they did.
And we are so grateful. But make no mistake, we are not done. The George Floyd Policing and Reform Act must pass the Senate.
Yes. Amen.
We now know that today Police can and will be held accountable for needless death. This death never should have happened. George should have been alive somewhere with his daughter Gianna playing on a playground.
Amen. That's right.
From now on, everyone's on notice that police will be held accountable, but we will be held accountable too. This whole country should be held accountable, but police especially. I am so thankful to all of you. I am hopeful for a greater America, for a great vote of confidence. I will tell you that Speaker.
All right, everyone, we're going to be ending the stream. Benjamin Dixon is actually on the Roland Martin show. He was on. He was on earlier, but he had to leave to prepare for Roland Martin. So believe it, you can find him on the Roland Martin show, I believe. And like it or not, we'll be live tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time on all platforms. Have a great day, everyone. A little bit of good news for today for this year's 420.
Was Lamaya. She said one thing to me that I promised her that I would repeat today. Lamaya is not part of the Floyd family. She is part of the Wright family. And she said one thing, and I promised her I would say it today. We are all God's children. Yes. Thank you, Lamaya.
Thank you, Tony. And I know Speaker Pelosi called. We need to acknowledge when we were at the courthouse as we were leaving, I got one of those calls and we stopped everything. No idea. And